Good morning, Israel. This is Minister Hall, Ralph Hall, and it's now 4:09 a.m. and this is the 10th day of the 6th month of 2016. And this is I'm be talking about what God says about His Word, command. What the mouth and voice of God says about His Word, command, part two. Part two. Part two. What the mouth and voice of God says about His Word, command, part two. Let's pick it up here at Job chapter 5, verse 17. Behold, happy is the man whom God correcteth. Therefore despise not thou the chastening of the Almighty. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 5. And ye have forgotten the exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children. My son, despise not thou the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. Job chapter 5, verse 17. Behold, happy is the man whom God correcteth. Therefore despise not thou the chastening of the Almighty. James chapter 1, verse 12. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. Luke chapter 22, verse 28. Ye are they which have continued with me in my temptations. Hebrews chapter 4:15. For we have not an high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. Luke chapter 22, verse 28. Ye are they which have continued with me in my temptations. Hebrews chapter 4:15. For we have not an high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. 1 John chapter 3, verse 5. And ye know that he was manifested to take away our sins, and in him is no sin. Galatians chapter 3, verse 13. Christ hath redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us. For it is written, Cursed is everyone that hangeth on a tree. What the mouth and voice of God says about his word, command. Joshua chapter 10, verse 26. And afterward Joshua smote them and slew them and hanged them on 5 trees. And they were hanging upon the trees until the evening. Joshua chapter 10, verse 27. And it came to pass at the time of the going down of the sun, that Joshua commanded, and they took them down off the trees, and cast them into the cave wherein they had been hid, and laid great stones in the cave's mouth, which remain until this very day. Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 23. His body shall not remain all night upon the tree, but thou shalt in any wise bury him that day. For he that is hanged is accursed of God, that thy land be not defiled, which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance. Numbers chapter 35, verse 34. Defile not therefore the land which ye shall inhabit, wherein I dwell, for I, the Lord, dwell among the children of Israel. Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 23. His body shall not remain all night upon the tree, but thou shalt in any wise bury him that day. For he that is hanged is accursed of God, that thy land be not defiled, which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance. Numbers chapter 35, verse 34. Defile not therefore the land which ye shall inhabit, wherein I dwell. For I, the Lord, dwell among the children of Israel. Hosea chapter 9, verse 3. They shall not dwell in the Lord's land, but Ephraim shall return to Egypt, and they shall eat unclean things in Assyria. Luke chapter 22, verse 29. And I appoint unto you a kingdom, as my Father hath appointed unto me. What the mouth and voice of God says about his word command. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 12. And we suffer. We also reign with him. If we deny him, he also will deny us. Mark chapter 8, verse 38. Whosoever therefore shall be ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him also shall the Son of Man be ashamed, when he cometh in the glory of his Father with the holy angels. Luke chapter 22, verse 30. That ye may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 2. Do ye not know that the saints shall judge the world? And if the world shall be judged by you, are ye unworthy to judge the smallest matters? Daniel chapter 7, verse 22. Until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was given, the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possess the kingdom. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 8. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. James chapter 1, verse 13. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. James chapter 1, verse 14. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 17. By faith Abraham, when he was tried, offered up Isaac, and he that had received the promise offered up his only begotten son. What the mouth and voice of God says about his word command. James chapter 2, verse 21. Was not Abraham our father justified by works, when he had offered Isaac his son upon the altar? Genesis chapter 22, verse 9. And they came to the place which God had told of him. And Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 6. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart. Isaiah chapter 51, verse 7. Hearken unto me, ye that know righteousness, the people in whose heart is my law. Fear ye not the reproach of men, neither be ye afraid of their ravelings. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 11. Thou shalt therefore keep the commandments and the statutes and the judgments which I command thee this day, to do them. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 1. All the commandments which I command thee this day shall ye observe to do, that ye may live and multiply, and go in and possess the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 11. Beware that thou forget not the Lord thy God in not keeping his commandments and his judgments and his statutes, which I command thee this day. Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 13. To keep the commandments of the Lord and his statutes, which I command thee this day for thy good. Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 8. Therefore shall ye keep all the commandments which I command you this day, that ye put that ye may be strong, and go in and possess the land, whether ye go to possess it. Joshua chapter 1, verse 6. Be strong and of a good courage, for unto this people shalt thou divide for an inheritance the land, which I swear unto their fathers to give them. Joshua chapter 1, verse 7. Joshua chapter 1, verse 7. Only be thou strong and very courageous, that thou mayest observe to do according to all the law, which Moses my servant commanded thee. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that thou mayest prosper whithersoever thou goest. Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 13. And it shall come to pass, if ye shall hearken diligently unto my commandments, which I command you this day, to love the Lord your God, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. What the mouth and voice of God says about his word, commandment. What the mouth and voice of God say about his word, command. Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 22. For if ye shall diligently keep all these commandments, which I command you to do them, to love the Lord your God, to walk in all his ways, and to cleave unto him. Deuteronomy chapter 11, 27. A blessing if ye obey the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you this day. Deuteronomy chapter 11, 28. And a curse if ye will not obey the commandments of the Lord your God, but turn aside out of the way, which I command you this day, to go after other gods, which ye have not known. What the mouth and voice of God says about his word, command. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 11. Then there shall be a place which the Lord your God shall choose to cause his name to dwell there. Thither shall ye bring all that I command you, your burnt offerings, and your sacrifices, your tithes, and the heave offering of your hand, and all your choice vows which ye vow unto the Lord. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 14. But in the place which the Lord shall choose in one of thy tribes, there thou shalt offer thy burnt offerings, and there thou shalt do all that I command thee. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 28. Observe and hear all these words which I command thee, that it may go well with thee and with thy children after thee forever. When thou doest that which is good and right in the sight of the Lord thy God. Deuteronomy chapter 12, 32. What things soever I command you, observe to do it. Thou shalt not add thereto, nor diminish from it. Proverbs chapter 30, verse 6. Add thou not unto his words, lest he reprove thee, and thou be found a liar. Revelation chapter 22, verse 18. For I testify unto every man that heareth the words of the prophecy of this book. If any man shall add unto these things, God shall add unto him the plagues that are written in this book. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 32. What things soever I command you, observe to do it. Thou shalt not add thereto, nor diminish from it. Proverbs chapter 30, verse 6. Add thou not unto his words, lest he reprove thee, and thou be found a liar. What the mouth and voice of God says about his word, command. Revelation chapter 22, verse 18. For I testify unto every man that heareth the words of the prophecy of this book. If any man shall add unto these things, God shall add unto him the plagues that are written in this book. Deuteronomy chapter 13, verse 18. Wherein thou shalt hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep all his commandments which I command thee this day, to do that which is right in the eyes of the Lord thy God. Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 5. Only if thou carefully hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe, to do all these commandments, which I command thee this day. Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 11. For the poor shall never cease out of the land. Therefore I command thee, saying, Thou shalt open thine hand wide unto thy brother, to thy poor, and to thy needy in the land. Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 15. And thou shalt remember that thou wast a bondman in the land of Egypt, and the Lord thy God redeemed thee. Therefore I command thee this thing today. Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 18. I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee, and will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. That's Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 18. John chapter 17, verse 8. For I have given unto them the words which thou gavest me, and they have received them, and have known surely that I came out from thee, and they have believed that thou didst send me. Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 7. Wherefore I command thee, saying, Thou shalt separate, thou shalt separate 3 cities for thee. That's Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 7. Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 9. If thou shalt keep all these commandments to do them, which I command thee this day, to love the Lord thy God, and to walk ever in his ways, then shalt thou add 3 cities more for thee beside these 3. Joshua chapter 20, verse 7. And they appointed Kadesh in Galilee, in Mount Naphtali, and Shechem in Mount Ephraim, and Kirjath Arba, which is Hebron, in the mountain of Judah. Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 18. But thou shalt remember that thou wast a bondman in Egypt, and the Lord thy God redeemed thee thence. Therefore I command thee to do this thing. Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 22. Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 22. And thou shalt remember that thou wast a bondman in the land of Egypt. Therefore I command thee to do this thing. What the mouth and voice of God says but his word command. Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 1. Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 1. And Moses with the elders of Israel commanded the people, saying, Keep all the commandments which I command you this day. Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 24. Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 4. Therefore it shall be when ye be gone over Jordan, that ye shall set up these stones which I command you this day in Mount Ebal, and thou shalt plaster them with plaster. Joshua chapter 8, verse 30. Then Joshua built an altar unto the Lord God of Israel in Mount Ebal. Exodus chapter 20, verse 24. An altar of earth thou shalt make unto me, and shalt sacrifice thereon thy burnt offerings, and thy peace offerings, thy sheep and thine oxen, in all places where I record my name. I will come unto thee, and I will bless thee.